Good morning, students.
Good morning.
So, we are going to start endocrine glands. Today, we'll finish pituitary gland, and others will be it's the largest topic with respect to endocrine glands. We'll finish other in two or three classes. So, coming to the pituitary gland should be called as hypophysis. It should not be called with the name pituitary gland. Why? You're going to learn from this topic. Pituitary gland is also called as hypophysis. It is a small gland, just 1 centimeter in diameter, but controls the 100 kg body of the entire human being. Its weight is zero point 0.5 to 1 gram in weight in general, but in male it is zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.6 grams. In female, it is zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.7 grams. Thus, it is larger in females in size than males. It is found to be reddish gray in color and oval in shape. So, where is actually this gland is present? This gland is present in a pit or depression called as sella turcica. Where is this sella turcica present? It is present in, if this is the bone, this bone is called as sphenoid bone. So this sphenoid bone shows a depression. So this depression is called as sella turcica, in which our pituitary gets lodged. Where from this arise? If this is the brain, the third ventricle is called as diencephalon. The third part of the forebrain is called as diencephalon, and this diencephalon is having what we call a cavity called as diaceal, and the diaceal has a roof, a floor, and two lateral sides. The roof is called as epithalamus, the sides are called as optic thalami, and floor is called as hypothalamus. And to this hypothalamus, the pituitary gland is attached by a stalk. That is how it is said to be present. It is connected to the hypothalamus by the pituitary stalk, also called as hypophyseal stalk. So, you see from this diagram, pituitary gland is present on the ventral side of brain. So, on the ventral side, you can see this, where exactly in the near the tympanic region. Here there is a bone called as, this bone is called as sphenoid bone. This shows this depression, sella turcica, in which this pituitary gland is said to be lodged. And it is connected to the hypothalamus by a stalk. Coming to the naming ceremony. In 16th century, a scientist called as Vesalius, he named this gland as pituitary. So why this is called as pituitary? In Latin, the term pituita means phlegm or mucus. Okay, so when we get cough, we get phlegm, and that is filtered and collected waste, okay, from the brain, and these lubricated the nasal and pharyngeal passages in one of his experiments. So, based on this feature, he called it as pituitary. After the true function of the gland was established, that means it is not just for lubrication of the neural or pharyngeal passages, it is more than that. It was replaced by the term hypophysis. physis, where it is derived from a Greek word phyan, which means to grow. So, main function of the pituitary gland, apart from other functions, is controlling or regulation of growth of the body. Hence, the term is replaced by hypophysis, but still we use the same term pituitary gland because it is more familiar. Coming to the origin of pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is said to be having origin from two sources. Okay, when you see the embryonic development, in the embryonic development, we have in the gastrula stage an ectoderm and endoderm. The ectoderm is divided into two parts. This part is called as neurectoderm, and the remaining entire part, this entire part, is called as somatic ectoderm. Neurectoderm gives rise to nervous system. Somatic ectoderm gives rise to the body wall, and endoderm gives rise to alimentary canal, and this the wall of the alimentary canal, and the cavity that is archenteron gives rise to the cavity of the alimentary canal. The wall is from endoderm, the cavity is from archenteron. We know the alimentary canal starts with mouth and ends with anus. So if this cavity is derived from archenteron, one of these two openings should be derived from the opening of the archenteron. This is called as blastopore, this entire opening. So here in us, the blastopore becomes anus. That means on this side, mouth develops. So between these two, the alimentary canal develops. So when the alimentary canal is developing, so it extends to this side, okay, and here on this side where the mouth is present, it comes in contact with the ectoderm. Thus, part of the alimentary canal, front part of the alimentary canal, which we call it as foregut, it is lined internally by ectoderm. So, if this is the mouth and the remaining parts as foregut, it is said to be derived from endoderm only. But as it is in contact with the ectoderm, this ectoderm forms a inner lining. This forms a inner lining. So the anterior part of the alimentary canal, that is mouth with buccal cavity, is derived from ectoderm, which is somatic ectoderm. Okay, and above this, in this diagram we have seen that here there is nervous system, neuroectoderm, which gives rise to the entire nervous system. That means above this part there is nervous part of the nervous system extending from the brain and spinal cord and so on. And from the hypothalamic region, there occurs a neural downgrowth. Here occurs a neural downgrowth. And at the same time, from the roof of the buccal cavity, this is the buccal cavity, which is somatic ectodermal in origin. This is neuroectodermal in origin. From here, the buccal cavity forms a pouch like structure. And this pouch is discovered by scientist Ratke, hence it is called as Ratke's pouch. So soon the Ratke's pouch grows up and meets the neural downgrowth. It meets the neural downgrowth, and after that it gets separated. The Ratke's pouch gets separated from the roof of buccal cavity, and now this becomes the pituitary gland. And the neural down growth, which comes in contact with the pituitary gland, and this becomes the what we call infundibulum. Thus, pituitary gland originates from two sources, one from the brain, that is neuroectoderm, the other from the roof of the buccal cavity, somatic ectoderm, as well as endoderm, which is said to be deriving from which the alimentary canal is said to be derived. And coming to this entire thing, embryologically, the two portions of the pituitary originate from two different sources. The anterior pituitary from Radke's pouch, which is an embryonic invagination of the pharyngeal epithelium or roof of the buccal cavity. And the posterior pituitary arises from a neural tissue outgrowth from the hypothalamus. Thus, it is dual in origin. Coming to the parts of pituitary gland. Physiologically, we can divide the pituitary gland into two portions. One is anterior pituitary, also known as adenohypophysis, and the other is posterior pituitary, also called as neurohypophysis. Between these portions, a small area which is avascular, that means it is not supplied with any blood supply. Adenohypophysis receives blood supply, neurohypophysis also receives, but not the intermediate. So this avascular zone is called as pars intermedia. Whenever you come across with the term pars, you have to remember it is literally meaning by the side of. So all these are said to be present one by the side of the other. So in order to name them, this term is said to be used. And this pars intermedia is less developed in human beings but larger and more functional in some other animals. So, thus, we can say that pituitary gland is divided into two parts. So, pituitary gland is also called as hypophysis. So, it is adenohypophysis or anterior pituitary, neurohypophysis or posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is said to be originating from rat cage pouch of roof of buccal cavity or pharyngeal epithelium, whatever it may be. A neurohypophysis, as the name implies, it arises from the neural downgrowth of the diencephalon. And this part, anterior pituitary, comprises of three parts: pars distalis, pars tuberalis, pars intermedia. Pars distalis is also called as pars anterior, whereas neurohypophysis comprises of one part called as pars nervosa. This is the nomenclature or subdivisions that we generally read in our books. But actually, there is the nomenclature different in what actually the scientific organizations teach us, which we are going to deal with now. So microscopically, when we see the pituitary gland, it consists of six parts. The first one we have already seen, pars distalis or pars anterior. Second one, pars tuberalis, pars intermedia, and pars nervosa, also called as lobus nervosus, means nervous lobe. And fifth one, pars posterior. It is called as infundibular process or processus infundibuli, whatever it may be, and it is situated in the median eminence of tuber cinerum. And last one is infundibulum or pituitary stalk. So these are the parts that we actually see in a pituitary gland. Okay. Now, divisions of the pituitary gland are recommended by the International Commission on Anatomical Nomenclature. According to this, These are the actual uh, subdivisions of the pituitary gland according to the scientific community. So it is divided into two parts: adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis is also called as lobus glandularis. Adenohypophysis is also called as lobus glandularis. It consists of pars distalis, also called as pars anterior, and pars tuberalis. These two put together constitute anterior lobe. That means adenohypophysis. Sorry, anterior lobe of adenohypophysis. So this we call it as anterior lobe. Along with pars intermedia, this makes up the adenohypophysis. Okay. Next, coming to the neurohypophysis, it consists of infundibulum and the second part, that is lobus nervosus or pars nervosa or neural lobe, we can call it. And this neural lobe continues to form infundibular process. So scientists call pars intermedia along with neural infundibular process as the posterior lobe. So the division we say anterior lobe, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary are said to be different from actual divisions suggested or recommended by the International Commission. And infundibulum in turn is again having three parts: pedicellus infundibularis, bulbus infundibularis, labrum infundibularis. Pedicellus means stalk-like structure. Bulbus infundibularis means bulb-like structure. And the third one is said to be median eminence, which is in contact with the hypothalamus. So these three form into the infundibular structure, which is also called as neural stalk or pituitary stalk, with which to which the actual pituitary body comprising of adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis are attached. Okay, coming to another thing, we have seen there is pars distalis, pars tuberalis, pars nervosa, and in between there is pars intermedia. Scientists say that the pars intermedia is separated from the pars distalis by a cavity called as interglandular cleft. Interglandular cleft. We have seen that from the roof of buccal cavity, the rat case pouch arises and it meets the neural downgrowth from the from the floor of hypothalamus, and soon it gets separated. So the as it gets separated, the pouch is having its cavity. So this is the pouch of rat case, the cavity of rat case pouch. So this cavity of the rat case pouch remains in the adult pituitary as the interglandular cavity present between pars intermedia and pars distalis. So coming to the exact structure of the pituitary gland. So this is the hypothalamus. Okay. On either side we come across with two parts of the brain, mammillary body and optic chiasma. From the hypothalamus starts the infundibulum. So this portion is the infundibulum or stalk, and this entire portion forms the pituitary body. So let's see what are the different parts. Coming to the anterior pituitary or adenohypophysis, it comprises of pars tuberalis. So this initial part in the stalk is said to be pars tuberalis and pars intermedia, that is present between tuberalis and distalis. We can say between adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis it is actually seems to be present. And the third one is this entire lobe, that is called as pars distalis. So these three, pars tuberalis, pars intermedia, pars distalis, also called as pars anterior, constitute adenohypophysis. Coming to the second part, that is neurohypophysis. It comprises of an infundibular process. This is the infundibular process, and a neural stalk. This is the neural stalk. So this neural stalk comprises of median eminence, sorry, median eminence. What is happening here? Hmm. Median eminence and infundibular stem. So median eminence, infundibular stem, and infundibular process together constitute neurohypophysis. So this entire part constitutes the neurohypophysis. This is the inter pars intermedia. This is pars distalis. This is pars tuberalis, and between these two, there is interglandular cleft. So, for your understanding, let me draw this once again. So, here there is hypothalamus with mammillary body and optic chiasma, followed by median eminence. And from this originates the infundibular process, which continues as pars nervosa. And this part, along with a part of this infundibular process, constitutes the pars tuberalis. So this is median eminence, this is pars tuberalis, and this is infundibular process, and this is pars nervosa. Infundibular process or pars nervosa. And pars tuberalis continues as pars distalis or pars intermedia. Between these two, we can see the pars intermedia. Not up to this, up to this. This is the pars intermedia present between these two. And the pars intermedia is separated from pars distalis by an interglandular cleft. This is a cavity present. This is called as interglandular cleft. What is this? The interglandular cleft is the remnant, the portion that remained, remnant of rat case pouch, cavity of rat case pouch. This is how the pituitary gland is organized. And coming to the histology of pars distalis. Why we are speaking of pars distalis only? Because most of the hormones are secreted by pars distalis only. Let me tell you again what is happening here. Out of all these parts, we have pars tuberalis. Pars tuberalis is non-secretory. It does not secrete any hormone. So no hormones are secreted from pars tuberalis. Next one, pars nervosa. It is also non-secretory. It is also non-secretory. That means even the posterior pituitary is not having any cells that can secrete a hormone. So pars tuberalis is having certain cells which cannot secrete hormone. Pars nervosa is also having certain cells which cannot secrete any hormone. The cells of pars nervosa are given the name pituocytes. The cells of pars nervosa are given the name pituocytes, which are non-secretory in nature. And the third part is said to be pars intermedia. So this secretory in nature, this secretes one hormone that is called as melanocyte stimulating hormone. Melanocyte stimulating hormone. Only one hormone it secretes. And all the remaining hormones are secreted by pars distalis or pars anterior. So thus it is secretory in nature. It secretes around 6 to 7 hormones which are called as trophic hormones. Pars distalis secretes trophic hormones. But we see, in addition to these trophic hormones and melanocyte stimulating hormone, we also see two other hormones. One is antidiuretic hormone, also called as vasopressin, and the other is oxytocin, also called as pitressin. So these two are secreted from pars nervosa, not by pars nervosa. Why? Because the hypothalamus is there. From this hypothalamus, there arises certain hormones are synthesized. These hormones, through the nerve endings, they reach the pars nervosa, and those hormones are said to be stored here. And upon stimulus, these hormones are secreted by pars nervosa. So they are secreted from pars nervosa, but not by the cells of pars nervosa, because the pars cells of pars nervosa are non-secretory in nature, and these hormones are synthesized in the neurons of the hypothalamus. Thus, these are neurosecretory in nature. So, thus, it secretes trophic hormones and also neurosecretory hormones. Trophic hormones are secreted by pars distalis, and neurosecretory hormones are secreted by pars nervosa. So these things you have to remember. And coming to the pars distalis, its histology. This forms about 75% of the entire pituitary gland and consists of a number of cells, epithelioid cells, arranged in columns. They are arranged in columns and with numerous blood sinuses. So, coming to the two types of cells here, it has two types of cells. One is called as chromophobe, the other is called as chromophil. As the name implies, chromophobe, these are called as chief cells or reserve cells, which constitute 25% of all the cells of the pars distalis. They are called as chromophobes because these cells are not stained with either basic dye or acidic dye or a neutral dye. They're unstained cells. Chromo means pigment, phobo means hating. So they hate the pigmentation. That means they do not get stained. Why they do not get stained? Because these are non-secretory in nature. You know generally how staining takes place when you do the practicals. In animals, tissue sectioning is there. Even in plant cells, tissue sectioning is there. When you section the plant cell in your practical, after sectioning through with the help of a blade, a small twig, okay, you place the section in a solution, staining solution for some time. After that, you take that and observe it under microscope. The same is the case with the animal cell, animal tissue also. In that case, what is happening is the cells are getting stained. So what actually cell is having? It is having a number of cell organelles, isn't it? Mostly from endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi complex. What happens? The stored synthesized products are released from Golgi complex and endoplasmic reticulum as small vesicles in which these products are stored. For example, Golgi complex produces polysaccharides. So this vesicle contains polysaccharides. Endoplasmic reticulum synthesizes protein. So the vesicles of endoplasmic reticulum contain proteins. And the vesicles of Golgi where not only the proteins of ER arise, but also polysaccharides add. Some vesicles contain glycoproteins, so on. So there are so many vesicles which are said to be having different types of biomolecules. When you stain with them with some staining dyes, a basic dye or an acidic dye or a neutral dye, these appear as In the cell under microscope, these appear as small granule-like structure. So what are these granules? These are granules which are nothing but secretory vesicles, which has certain products inside that can be delivered outside. For example, there is an enzyme, pepsinogen. There is glycosomes, where said to be glucose is said to be compacted and stored in these vesicles. So whenever there is a need arises, the vesicle fuses with it and releases all its contents by process of exocytosis. Hence we call this process as secretion, and these appear like small granules because of the contents that are present inside. They are called as secretory granules. So chromophobes are not having any secretory granules, hence they do not get stained with. Okay, and they in general also have less cytoplasm when compared with chromophils. So what you have to remember from this entire thing is chromophobes are said to be only 25% of the total cells, and they are not stained, unstainable cells, because they do not have any secretory granules. Coming to the chromophils, so these constitute 75%. That means all the remaining percentage after chromophobes are said to be constituted by the chromophil cells. These make up the largest part, because the term is again derived from two terms: chromophil, that means philic means loving, they love pigmentation. Why? They have secretory granules inside. So the various dyes, whether it be acidic or basic dye, are responsible for staining these cells. And based on the type of stain used, some cells of chromophils are stained by acidic dyes, they are called as acidophils. Some are stained by basic dyes, hence they are called as basophils. Acidophil is also called as A cell or eosinophil cell or oxyphil cell, which constitutes 35%, and basophil is also called as J3 cell, which constitutes 15%. Okay, so these are the cells which are having secretory granules. And coming to the acidophils, the acidophils are again divided into two types. One is somatotrophic cells, simply called as somatotrophs, lactotrophic cells, or lactotrophs. Somatotrophic cells are also called as orangiophils, because they are stained, they can be stained with orange G of an azan stain, or they can be called as CX acidophils, and they secrete growth hormone or somatotrophic hormone. And second one are lactotrophic cells, also called as carminophils, because they are stained with azocarmine, or they can be simply called as acidophils, and these are said to be secreting prolactin, also called as lactotrophic hormone or lactotropin. The somatotrophic cells, what you have to remember is they secrete growth hormone. Growth hormone is also called as somatotrophic hormone, or simply in short, it is called as somatotropin. Lactotrophic hormones, lactotrophic cells or lactotrophs secrete prolactin, which is called as by this name lactotrophic hormone, or in short as lactotropin. So these are the two hormones secreted by the two different cells of acidophils. Coming to the basophils or mucoid cells. Nearly 20% of cells are said to be basophilic, and these are different kinds of basophil cells which secrete different types of trophic hormones only. Number one, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone. This is also called as thyrotrophic hormone or thyrotropin, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, both of which are called as gonadotrophic hormones or gonadotropins. Okay, adrenocorticotropic hormone is protein, whereas these three are glycoproteins. So I have asked you one question when we are discussing about the classification of hormones. I asked you to identify what are the peptide hormones, what are the protein hormones, what are the glycoprotein hormones. And here the glycoprotein hormones are thyroid stimulating hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone. Okay, so coming to this again, thyroid, these are secreted by different cells. First cell is thyrotrophic cell. The cell that makes thyroid stimulating hormone is called as thyrotroph, and it is said to be a large polygonal cell with very small nuclei, and they take up periodic acid shift stain. Periodic acid shift stain combined with the aldehyde thionin. So how they are stained? They are stained with this particular stain combined with aldehyde thionin, and they are responsible for secreting what we call it as thyroid stimulating hormone. Second one is gonadotrophic hormone. These are also called as castration cells or signet ring cells by certain scientists who observed them, um, that after castration, that means removal of male reproductive organs or female reproductive organs, these cells may be absent. So they are said to be called as castration cells or something like that. But actually, they are gonadotrophic hormones. They are responsible for what we call stimulating the gonads. So they are also stained with periodic acid shift stain, and they secrete follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And corticotrophic cells, they secrete what we call adrenocorticotrophic hormone, which mimics the melanocyte stimulating hormone of the pars intermedia 2. Okay, and coming to the blood supply, pituitary gland is supplied blood from the carotid artery. It is supplied blood from the carotid artery. Carotid artery is the blood vessel which supplies blood to the brain. So from the heart there arises left systemic aorta. This continues as towards the upper side as carotid artery. That divides to form an external carotid and internal carotid that supplies blood to the brain. So coming to this, the anterior lobe of pituitary gland gets blood supply from several superior hypophyseal arteries which originate from the internal carotid artery and circle of Willis. So the internal carotid artery is again divided into sub branches that are connected by a circle of Willis. So what actually have to remember, what is the blood supply, how the pituitary gland is supplied blood. So it is supplied blood by internal carotid artery. This internal carotid artery divides into a number of superior hypophyseal arteries. So all these are superior hypophyseal arteries, and these superior hypophyseal arteries supply blood to the pituitary gland. Okay, so to which part they supply? They supply blood to the anterior lobe through two sets of blood vessels. I'll show it in the diagram and draw this. Then you'll understand. One set of blood vessels supplies the lobe directly and forms a sinusoid. Another set of blood vessels reaches the capillary plexus of the median eminence and the infundibular stem. Thus, the anterior lobe, the this is the posterior lobe, this is the anterior lobe, this is the infundibular stalk, and this is the median eminence, and this is hypothalamus. So here the internal carotid artery divides into superior hypophyseal arteries. So these superior hypophyseal arteries supply blood directly to anterior pituitary, comprising of pars tubralis and pars distalis. At the same time, it is connected to the second set of blood vessels, which form a capillary network around the median eminence and infundibular stem. So this forms a capillary network here. So this capillary network connects the hypothalamus with the posterior pituitary as well as anterior pituitary. Okay, so we'll deal with later. So this capillary plexus is a spiral structure around the hypophyseal stalk. It is drained by a long portal vein which ends ultimately in the anterior lobe. Thus, it is connected to the anterior lobe directly, the first plexus. And the second set of blood supply is given by the hypothalamo hypophyseal portal system, which is important for controlling the anterior pituitary secretion through the hormones released from the hypothalamus called as releasing factors. Okay, so let me finish this first. Next, it gives off inferior hypophyseal artery and which are drained through the cavernous sinus. So let me explain this with a diagram. So this is the hypothalamus followed by median eminence, which continues as infundibular stalk with posterior pituitary and anterior pituitary, infundibulum, glandular cleft, pars tubralis, etc. Now what happens is internal carotid artery starts from the brain and divides to form a number of blood capillaries. So these blood capillaries around the infundibular stem form into a plexus, a capillary plexus. So this capillary plexus drains blood into long hypophyseal portal vein, hypophyseal portal vein, which forms again capillary network in the pars distalis as well as pars nervosa. So here these two are said to be forming into two capillary networks again. So these capillary networks are joined with inferior, sorry, with inferior hypophyseal arteries from which the blood comes out through the cavernous sinus. So this is how the blood supply takes place. Okay, so this is the internal carotid artery. These are the superior hypophyseal arteries. So blood is received through these two, and these are the internal inferior hypophyseal arteries, and this is the cavernous sinus through which the blood comes out. Between these two, we come across with two capillary networks. Here, the other in the pituitary body. The one that is here is the first capillary network. The other is said to be the second capillary network. These two are connected by a long vein that is called as portal vein. So we come across with when circulation, there are three types of circulations: lymphatic circulation, pulmonary circulation, and blood circulation, and portal circulation. Lymphatic, blood, and portal circulation. Portal circulation is part of blood circulation only. What is portal circulation? So the portal circulation involves is of three types. One that is associated with the kidney is called as renal portal system. One that is associated with the liver is called as hepatic portal system. And the one that is associated with the hypophysis connecting the hypothalamus is called as hypothalamo hypophyseal portal circulation. So, what actually portal circulation is? Can anybody tell me after digestion, after digestion, if this is the ileum where the process is completed, it contains the digested food. The digested food, where it goes first from the ileum? Can anybody tell me?
Small intestine, sir.
స్మాల్ ఇంటెస్టైన్లోనే ఉంది. ఇలియంలో డైజెస్టెడ్ ఫుడ్ ఉంది. అక్కడి నుంచి
Jejunum.
అబ్జార్బ్ అయిన తర్వాత ఎక్కడికి వెళ్తుంది? వేర్ డస్ ఇట్ గో?
Through portal vein to liver.
First it goes to liver. Why only to liver?
After metabolic reaction will take place, like glycogenesis, everything will take place.
Very good.
That is
Somewhat correct. What actually happens is if all the digested food directly, if this is the heart, from the heart blood goes to body parts as well as even to brain. If it is collected by the veins, if the blood is directly collected by the veins, it may go through the right auricle, right ventricle, from there to the lungs, left auricle, left ventricle, and from there directly to the brain. So, if any toxic compound that is present, for example, many of uh, the students present days and our parents, they drink alcohol is toxic to the body, and some other food material
Sir,
which
your
may be.
voice is breaking, sir.
Hello, is it not clear voice?
ఇంతకుముందు బ్రేక్ అయింది సార్ వాయిస్.
ఇప్పుడు బాగానే ఉందా?
ఓకే సార్.
Okay. So so any toxic substances, if the blood is taken up directly by the venous circulation, it may to go to the brain directly. So what God has planned is that there should not be a direct contact with the alimentary canal. So between these two, there is a liver. So from here, the blood grows from the intestine first to liver, where it gets detoxified, and excess glucose is converted into glycogen and stored, and all the metals that are required are said to be stored, and the detoxified and the food that is after storage comes to the normal circulation. So this shortcut route is called as portal circulation. Actually, liver has to receive food from the normal arteries, but here's what is happening: it is receiving blood through a shortcut route directly from the intestine, not from the heart. And this shortcut route is called as portal circulation. The kidney also receives such. In portal circulation, you come across with two blood vessels. One blood vessel that is connected to the normal veins, that brings blood from the liver along with the digested food, detoxified food, to the normal circulation. And the other vessel is from directly from the intestine. So we call them as not arteries but as veins: hepatic vein and hepatic portal vein. So when the vein is said to be there, both are connected by capillary networks to each other. So in the liver, we come across with a capillary network, okay, formed by the hepatic vein and hepatic portal vein. So thus, it starts with the capillary network, the circulation, and ends with the capillary network. Such a circulation is called as portal circulation. And here also, it started with a capillary network, capillary plexus in the infundibulus stalk, and it ended with another capillary network in the pituitary body, from which the blood is drained outside, and hence it is called as portal circulation. But the main purpose of the portal circulation is to connect the hypothalamus with the pars anterior. Hence, we call this as hypothalamo hypophyseal. Hypophysis means pituitary body here. Hypophyseal portal system or portal circulation. And coming to the hormones of anterior pituitary. So the anterior pituitary is secreting seven types of hormones. It secretes seven different types of hormones. Growth hormone, also called as somatotrophic hormone or somatotrophin. Second one, thyrotrophic hormone or thyroid stimulator or thyrotrophin. Third one, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, in short ACTH, or adrenotrophic hormone, ATH, or adrenocorticotrophin. Fourth one, gonadotrophic hormone or gonadotrophins, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone in female, and in males it is called as interstitial cell stimulating hormone. And finally, lactogenic hormone. It is having different names. Lactogenic, prolactin, mammotrophic hormone, or luteotrophic hormone, or simply luteotrophin. In some species, this is included under gonadotrophic hormone category. When you see all these hormones, there is one that is common. What is trophic? The term trophic is common. So what is these two are gonadotrophic hormones. So see here also there is trophic term. This is called as luteotrophic or lactotrophic hormone. This is also trophic. So when I was explaining you the classification of hormones, I've explained you this particular hormone, trophic hormone. Can anybody remember what a trophic hormone is? What is a trophic hormone?
Fast distance.
They are
It will
secreted by
stimulate
pars
the.
distalis. But
Yes, sir.
actually,
It will
trophic
stimulate
hormone
the.
is. Trophic hormone is a hormone
It
that
will
is
stimulate.
secreted by one endocrine gland and stimulates the other endocrine gland. For example, thyroid trophic hormone. So this is secreted by pituitary gland and it stimulates thyroid gland. Gonadotrophic hormone. It is secreted by pituitary gland and what you call stimulates gonads. Even gonads are endocrine glands. Adrenocorticotrophic hormone. It is secreted by pituitary and stimulates another endocrine gland called as adrenal gland, only its cortex. Thus, these are the hormones which are secreted by one pituitary gland, that is one gland, one endocrine gland, that is pituitary gland here, that stimulate or regulate or control secretion of the hormones of other endocrine glands like adrenal gland, gonads, thyroid, and so on. Hence, all these hormones are called as trophic hormones. So, because it controls one, the growth of the body, and the mental, physical, and sexual growth of the body by through the thyroid stimulating hormone, and glucose metabolism, mineral metabolism, etc. by adrenocorticotrophic hormone, and reproduction by gonadotrophic hormones, and finally milk secretion by lactotrophic hormone. So almost the entire body is said to be under the control of this pituitary gland, and certain scientists call this as band master of band master of endocrine orchestra. Pituitary gland is called as band master of endocrine orchestra. And this is the big name. We can't remember this. So we simply call it as master gland until hypothalamic hormones are discovered, where we see that all these hormones are again under the control of releasing hormones secreted by the hypothalamus. Now, pituitary gland is no more a master gland. Why? Because it is in turn serving under another master called as hypothalamus. So previously, pituitary gland is a master gland. Now it is no more a master gland because it is under the control of the releasing hormone secreted by the hypothalamus. So I have to teach you more with respect to each hormone. So, what is its chemical structure, how it is synthesized, how it is secreted, what are the mechanisms that are involved, and what are the stimuli that cause the secretions of these hormones, and what are the disorders. So, we'll deal with all these with respect to pituitary gland in the evening class. Okay, hope you understand something. If you have any doubt, ask me, otherwise, we'll close.